Oops, he did it again. He's made another Modcast.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines.
We go wherever we want to, do what we like to do.
We want to look sharp when we go out at night.
You're gonna be one of the faces down there, are you?
What do you mean, going to be? I am one of the faces.
All ripped up and ready to go.
You are listening to Mr. Suave's Mod World at MrSuave.com and on modradiouk.net.
Interrupting all programs.
It's a mod world.
It's all the same, and I'm the blame for never having a clue. I know it's not right, and I should fight to find something better to do. Makes me feel so ordinary, so it's time for something. 8 hours a day, collecting my pay as a cog in a corporate machine. Come home every night, feeling uptight because I haven't accomplished a thing. Social security number, so it's time for something new. They told me that this was their best, this was as good as it could get, and that's what bothers me. Yeah! Collecting my pay as a target songs machine. Come on every night, feeling uptight. You know it makes me wanna scream. I'm not a social security number, so it's time for something new. Something new. Something new. Something new. Something new.
People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
He was born under a bad sign. You know, he never really had a chance. He's just another victim of circumstance. From Suave headquarters in Seattle, here he is, host of the Mod World, Mr. Suave.
Come on in, everybody. Come on in and get comfortable. We're going to chill and chat with the Decibels this week. Modcast 537, turn it up with the Decibels. That's right, I've got Dean and Brent Sievers here from the veteran Mod Band. Insert asterisk here, we'll cover it later. The Decibels. I kicked the Modcast off with something new. And it was new back in 2001. You heard me, that's right, 2001. When the Decibels dropped their sophomore release, The Big Sounds of the Decibels, it included that song, Something New. They were vets even then, having started out in music in the late 80s, early 90s, and then so on and so on. But I'll let them tell you those stories. What I want to tell you is what a damn fantastic band they are. Right out the gate in 1997 with their first LP, Create Action, they did. They created a lot of action, mod dance action for sure. They had jangly guitars, ringing power chords, catchy hooks, and a melding of 60s beat rock with 80s power pop in a 90s indie sort of way. There was no doubting the influences at play, The Who, The Kinks, The Beatles, and so on. The songs had a garagey edge that gave them energy, and a sharpness, well, just made them sizzle. Fast forward a few years or decades, and the Decibels came roaring back in 2018 with their fourth album, Seen Not Heard. There was a definite maturing heard across the board. The players were even better. The sound was much the same, but at a level probably previously not achieved. They were at the top of their game, as they are right now. And right now, they have a brand new album out, When Red Lights Flash. It simply rocks. It's got an accessibility to it that is familiar, but with enough newness to keep it fresh beginning to end. Songs like Enough, with its very mod opening that lets you know right where you're at. And then it takes you on this rip-roaring power pop ride that doesn't slow down until the last lick. The album is chock full of gems like that. He Thinks He's Right, Today's Your Day. Songs like that could have fallen right off a Plimsolls or Knack album. There's echoes of the 60s like the Beatles, The Who, and the Zombies. Nothing here will disappoint. So get on over to Bandcamp and get When Red Lights Flash. As always, I've got a link to the band's Bandcamp page up on the Modcast homepage at MrSuave.com. Don't forget to spell out the Mr. And, of course, there is all the other important stuff there. And you can link up with me and the Decibels on our various social media outlets from there. And I'm sure they'd love to hear from you, as would I. So, keep us in your loop. Moving on, if you like 60s influenced power pop, if you like danceable garage rock, if you long for mod revival sorts of sounds, then the Decibels are your guys. Here is just a little taste before we talk with Dean and Brent. First up, you will hear from their 2018 album Seen Not Heard, Stupidity, which they say is their favorite word. And then from the new album, I'm going to give you my favorite, or one of. That is, He Thinks He's Right, but He's Wrong. After that, we'll turn it up with the Decibels. Stick around.
Yeah. easy to get along. He thinks he's right, but he's wrong. He thinks he's right, but he's wrong. He thinks he's right, but he's wrong. Thinks he's right, but he's wrong. He'll find his place to belong. Thinks he's right, but he's wrong. He thinks he's weak, but he's strong. Thinks he's right, but he's wrong. He'll be alright when I'm gone.
Whoa, Mondo, cool.
But it's time to kill and blow up and down. 'Cause nothing else in fashion, fast and fashion itself. So, where have all the power puppets gone? Whatever happens to Tiffany's. La 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 la.
Where have all the power poppers gone? Whatever happened to 10 speed? Find out on Mr. Suave's Mod World at mrsuave.com.
I have two special guests with me today. I am talking with Brent and Dean from the Decibels. Thank you for being here, guys. I really do appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
The occasion for this discussion really is your new album, When Red Lights Flash, and we will get to that. But I just want to talk a little bit about your history and where you've been and the journey you've been on and how you got to this point. So I don't know, you can fill me in on how things got started. And it was a ways back, I think, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, kind of the origin of the Decibels started in the 80s, 1986. Formed a band called the E-Types. And generally, if you pick up the old E-Types record, you can still hear like the roots of the Decibels in that. Our first gig ever actually was the second gig ever was at Scooter Rage in San Francisco.
Wow.
That would have been in 86, maybe 87. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, so we, carried on. And then in 1992, the bass player and I just were going different directions musically. And I should have just asked him to leave and carried on the name, but I don't like conflict. And so I just broke the band up. And then the drummer and I started the Decibels with Joe, and we were a three-piece until 95. Is that right, Brett?
Yeah, 95.
And then Joe wanted to move from bass over to guitar, so we got Brent in when he was fresh-faced and 17 years old. And there was a couple blips in the late 90s. Brent moved away for a little bit, and then Joe got super busy starting his own business. So we had a couple of guys kind of fill in for shows and things like that. But, in terms of the creative lineup, it's been the same since 95 after we got Brian Machado in.
Wow.
And
That's
Brian
pretty impressive.
Pardon me?
That's pretty impressive to be able to keep a group together like that, even on and off for this many years,
Yeah, I can't imagine having anybody else involved.
That makes sense. So your first album was in 1997, like the first full-length release.
Correct.
And you did several pretty quickly over the course of the turn of the century there. Is that right?
Well, I mean, we did Create Action in 97. It came out on vinyl in 97 and CD in 98, back when CDs were a thing. And then Brent moved back, and then we did Big Sounds. We recorded in 2000. And then
It's right in 2000 with the 2001 release. Yeah.
Yeah, it was supposed to be on a different label, but the funding was through the .com money.
Oh.
And we were in the studio as the .com bubble was bursting.
Yeah.
And so we lost our funding. So we didn't know if it was ever going to come out. And then we had a friend of ours that rescued it from the studio and put it out.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, that was back in the day when you had to have studio and studio time.
Right.
And it wasn't always cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So in the early 2000s, then, I mean, your sound was very what I would call mod friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily a hard mod band, but you were, came out of the mod scene and had tendencies leaning in that direction, right? So that's how you kind of, the influence was from the 60s music, sort of?
Yeah, 60s and 79 power pop. I mean, I think Brent and I considered ourselves all through the 90s as a mod band. It's just that mods didn't. So that was kind of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, we were Vespa riding, suit wearing, rock and rollers, and definitely with heavy influences. Certainly with the performances of the early Who, the recordings of the early Who were just big influences for us. But I mean, we go back. A lot of our influences are the same, kind of overlap a little bit. Dean and I. Some of mine are early back. I remember just as a kid hearing the Ventures and just thinking that was everything. That guitar music was so cool. The surf stuff, Safaris and all that. But then TV hits and I'm seeing Beatles cartoons and I'm seeing Monkeys reruns as a little kid. And I thought, that's where it's at, man. That is so much fun. But just really latched on to all that early 60s guitar music. For me, I was learning guitar at about the time when FM radio was playing electronic music, synth stuff. And so I didn't really relate. And so I was trying to find either AM stations that spoke to me or just different oldies stations turning to the dial. So all of that early Kinks, Paul Revere and the Raiders, that Herman's Hermits, all of that was a big influence on me because that's what I was hearing on the radio and they're playing guitars. And I liked that. And then that just, for me, especially like with the early Who, to me, that felt like a very natural step towards like the Jam and the Plimsolls and the late 70s, early 80s power pop and mod sort of scenes there.
Right.
So yeah, that was a big deal for me.
Yeah, and in the 90s, it was interesting. The term mod sort of fell out of favor. Mods, people who had previously been mods sort of didn't use the term as much. Bands kind of shied away from it for a little while, even though I would listen to them and I think, wow, this is kind of a mod band, or obviously has mod tendencies and a sound from the 60s and the late 70s power pop stuff. It's just kind of funny that was the case. And then some point in the 2000s, people started like, oh, okay, I'll embrace that term again.
Yeah, it's strange because I don't know how it was in Seattle, but in the 90s, everybody that I knew that were mods got into like Acid House and Adidas shoes and all that sort of stuff, and which is fine. I didn't relate to it at all, but I think for me, a lot of my sense of being a mod really came from the music and the aesthetic that went with the music, rather than with people who maybe were probably purer mods. It was really the aesthetic, and then the music was the soundtrack to their aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I came in from it backwards from a quote unquote real mod. I love the aesthetic because I love the music from those bands in that era. So
yeah, I think that was certainly the case for me too. The music was the biggest draw. And then, of course, you were learning about this time of the 60s and the styles and the aesthetic that went with that. And then how that translated later, especially like with some of the Britpop sort of stuff in the 90s, and hearing Oasis and some of those bands embracing a more Beatles, Kinksy sort of sound at times.
Right.
So you guys were scooter riders then as well.
Oh, yeah, I still am.
Yeah. Are you an avid scooterist?
I would say in my heart, yes. In terms of actual hours on the scooter, not as much anymore. Life kind of gets in the way. And we talked about before, it's always more fun to ride with other people and to have a place to go. So I'll take the scooter out and go someplace, or sometimes I'll just go for a ride. But after a while, you get a little bit lonely,
Right. Yeah, scooter rallies are fun because they're rallies, right?
Yeah, or even just having a group of friends, hey, we're going to meet up and we're going to go ride down the Delta and go get, Mexican food in, a town 30 miles away or something. But yeah, I mean, I'm always going to have an old Vespa or Lambretta hanging around. It's just such a part of life. And, Brent's still got a Vespa as well.
I had my 3 Vespas for a bit, but because that's the thing is you go like, well, it's so much easier to convince somebody to ride with you if you provide the scooter. So I bought those early in my teens and would cruise around Elk Grove when everybody was in school. So I'd pick like a Tuesday afternoon and just sort of ride where I wasn't supposed to ride. And that was just a fun thing to do on these little scooters. And it's nice because if anybody asked, like, what is that thing? What are you doing? Oh, no, it's under 50 cc's, which is California law. You have to have it licensed and things like that above. Oh yeah, it's just a nice little 49cc, just a little scooter. And we just ride around. It was just so much fun. But that was my teen years was, and we do everything. It was that I bought ones that were beat up. So I had a VNA and a VBB, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, 58 and a 64 Allstate that were just rusted through and horrible. So we'd take them out in the rain, and we realized, because we were Converse wearing punk rockers at the time, you could do a wheelie on your Vespa, and then stand like you're skiing behind it. So the Vespa's straight up, you're on skis, and you'd ski with your Converse down the street in the rain. And that was just so much fun. So yeah, stupid things like that. But those are happy memories, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of. I'll always have a scooter. I should say that, just because it's such a blast.
I remember actually being in Oakland or San Jose, I'm not sure which, in the late 80s for some sort of a scooter rally and concert event. And the hotel where most people were staying had a big, long parking strip behind it. And they actually put mattresses out of the hotel rooms at the end of the strip, and people were drag racing their scooters down there. We did some stupid things, sort of.
It's fun, though. I mean, that's
it was
part
fun.
of the culture.
Well, you get older and you wonder how you survived your youth, you know?
Oh, I know, right? We used to ride on the freeway, and you get behind a semi and just kind of let it suck you down the freeway. And I'm like, I don't do that in my car today. Anyhow, I do want to get back to talking more about the band and the music. I would like to find out from you, from the first couple of albums. Create Action's the first album, right? And the second album is Big Sounds.
Yep.
Okay, of the Decibels, right? That's the full title. Big
Yeah.
Sounds of the Decibels. Do you have some favorite songs? Maybe we could play one or two things, pick up the oldies, so to speak, and I'll drop those in and people can listen to them. Anything you'd especially like to highlight?
That's such a hard question. I don't know. Which kid's your favorite kid?
Right. I always liked playing Change live. It's off of Create Action. It's one that if people weren't moving, that song would get them to move. So that was always like a nice syncopated, fun dance number. So I always liked playing Change.
That's cool.
In terms of playing, I always like playing Overcast Day too. That riff in the beginning is a lot of fun, and then the harmonies. So.
All right, I'm going to play those, and I'm going to play one that I always really liked, and I think it was the first song of yours that I played on the Modcast quite a long time back when I discovered you guys there in the mid-aughts of 2000 some point. Good, which I think is the lead track off of the Create Action.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All right, so let's take a listen to those, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about newer stuff as well.
Great, thanks.
Obscure my view. Reality.
an overcast day. 'Cause it's 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 an overcast day.
Yeah, I had to go to Bandcamp and look up the albums because I can't remember what tracks are on what unless I'm staring at it.
That's that's funny, right? I mean, it's been a long time, and when you have enough stuff out there, you gotta think, well, what was that? I just remember that that the good song. I've tried over the years to not play too many duplicates or the same song from bands, which can be a little bit hard, but there's so much music to choose from. I've actually played that on the Modcast twice, I found out.
Oh,
I was
wow.
looking it up and I'm like, hey, I've played you guys a number of times, and then there's that track twice. So I know I really like it.
Well, I know Brett and I, it's whenever a new record comes out, we're always a little bit relieved because we'll get, the labels will usually send us, airplay stats and things like that, or you can see things streaming or whatever.
Yeah.
It's always nice when there's not just one song, if there's like 4 or 5 songs that are getting an equal amount of airplay or name drops and things like that. Because I know that it's really important to Brent and I to not have any filler on the record. So it's always hard when you say, hey, what's your favorite one? Because it's like we worked really hard to not, to make sure everyone is worthy of being on the album. In hindsight, you kind of go, maybe that one doesn't have as much sparkle as this other one. But it's really important for us to self-edit and just put the cream and not the filler.
Right. And some may be more geared more for live performance as opposed to a really great recording that maybe you don't play as live as often or something. I don't know. That's kind of interesting. So I have to ask you, I think it's your third album is the Bart Thurber
Sessions. Yeah.
Who is Bart Thurber?
Okay. I'll try to give you the Cliffs Notes of this. We were friends with the Odd Numbers. This was back in E-Types days. And we played, I'm pretty sure they played here first, and then we played in San Jose. And got to talking to them about, they had a 4-song EP that came out that just sounded great. And we were talking to them about it. And they said, oh yeah, we recorded with a guy named Bart Thurber who's got a studio called House of Faith. So we went to go record our E-Types EP there. At first it was, I was a little bit nervous about it because my impression on what a recording studio should be, or from the photos of old, Nelson Riddle, Frank Sinatra Capitol albums, or Abbey Road, these big, cathedral kind of places with acoustic tile all over it and stuff. And we pull up and it's like this super rundown building, and you walk in and it stinks, and the carpet's got gum stains on it and there's graffiti all over. And the actual recording room, I'm expecting this place to be pristine, and then there's a window where you can see the engineer and all the stuff. And there's none of that. It turns out that the engineer's room is down the hallway. There's this record store, and then the engineer's room is down the hall. It's like, oh man, what have we got ourselves into? And then I met Bart. He was a really nice guy. At the time, because I was a mod kid and sort of snobby in terms of appearances and stuff, he kind of had a tatty sweater and hair down to his waist, and I'm thinking, oh man, what's this going to turn out like? But we got on like a house on fire. It turns out he was in a mod band in the late 70s out of San Francisco called Start, and they put out one single, and it cost them a stupid amount of money to record. Wow. So Bart made a decision that, hey, every band should be able to afford to record. So he set up the studio and kept it really cheap, and it did a bunch of bands, and he was a blast to work with. We really clicked on that. He got our angle, and so he'd make these suggestions, and it was just really fun to record with them. And he always, charged us the same rate, even though we might go 3 or 4 hours over. It got to the point where we would just save our gig money until we got enough to go and record with Bart. So we ended up having, I don't know, 18 or 20 tracks from 3 different sessions, I think.
Wow.
But it never went anywhere. I think 4 of them came out on the Decibels EP on GI Records, but the rest of these tracks never saw the light of day. And then a Japanese label wanted to do a best of, which was weird because we're like, best of what? I mean, we haven't done anything. And the licensing was tricky for some stuff, for some of the songs from, I think, Create Action and Big Sounds. And so we said, hey, we've got all these old recordings that, never really seen the light of day. You want to put those out? And they said, sure. And so those are the Bart Thurber sessions, because those are all the songs we recorded with Bart.
That's fantastic. When I saw the title, I didn't know if it was just an interesting title you came up with, but it's cool to know that this was, an actual person and somebody committed to trying to help bands and get good stuff out there. And then it does have a sophisticated sound because the Bart Thurber sessions, is pretty cool.
Right. Well, it kind of, I guess there might be like a little bit of a subconscious take of, you got all those John Peel sessions records that came out in the 80s and stuff like that. And even though Bart wasn't a radio DJ or anything like that, I think recording with Bart was really integral to our growth as a band. And having a soundboard rather than, we were spoiled because there were studios we recorded in where the engineer hit record and he was like reading a magazine and stuff while we were recording, and they weren't listening or gave a crap or anything like that. And so I think it was important to just sort of name drop Bart because he was really important to the early formation and growth of us as a band.
Yeah. So after that, you guys actually have a few or more than a few years off from recording anyhow. You have a little hiatus in there as life happens, I guess.
Yeah.
That was just a combination of different things, people going different ways, and you managed to all come back together again, though.
Yeah, Brent moving back was integral to that happening.
Yeah, I went off to college, got a degree in digital media, whatever that means. But it taught me audio engineering, and it's fun when your homework is go record a song or buy a microphone. Gave me an excuse to purchase all the stuff that you see behind me.
Yeah.
Stuff for the studio that allowed me to record the Decibels. And so early on, we were like, hey, let's try this out. Let's see if we can even do it. I mean, I just got fresh out of school. I haven't really been doing this much other than little side projects. So we took it for a test drive. And that's what Big Hits is the Decibels recording a bunch of songs that we had performed live, never recorded because they weren't our own. And we thought this will be a good way just to test the equipment. And we all thought it turned out pretty decent. And so does Richie at Screaming Apple, enough that we were just going to show it to him and say, here's an example of what we can do. And we'll present a better album later, or a different album of originals later. But he liked it enough that he wanted to release it. So it became our next release there. I don't remember if Big Hits had Bart Thurber involved or if it was Seen Not Heard, but there was
Seen Not Heard.
Seen Not Heard. So it was enough that like when Seen Not Heard came, we did the same process. We recorded everything in my studio and then took it for mixing and final mastering with Bart Thurber for Seen Not Heard.
That's great. And it's, not a lot of bands can come back together in their entirety. You guys were lucky to be able to do that. And then to also be able to work with producer, engineer Bart again, after a long time like that, that's a pretty great accomplishment. So it shows.
Cool. Well, and luckily we all knew how to fight the same way. There's something comforting about like, if we are going to push and pull and struggle, that at least it's the same push and pull and struggle, you know what you're getting into. But it's also one of those things that we had gelled so much as a band that by this point you could come in and say, okay, new song, key of A, 1, 2, 3, go. And it starts sounding good almost immediately. So it's really cool working with the talent that we've been working with. So.
How was it doing covers that you didn't know at the time that you were going to be, publishing that? You were just sort of testing things out, right? Versus doing all originals, because most of your stuff is original.
So live, it was always, especially back then, we were playing a lot. And And I always felt like you got to give people their money's worth, so you don't want to do the same set over and over again.
Right.
So it's kind of nice to pepper sets with covers, and a lot of times the covers we'd keep them in the set for 3 shows or something, 2 or 3 shows, and then move on to something else. And so I know I was a little bit nervous. I don't know if Brent was, because it's always a little bit of the kiss of death when a band comes out with a covers record. So you think, oh, they're out of ideas,
Right.
kind of thing. And so I was a little bit nervous about it because it wasn't. We were recording those for kind of posterity, and again to just, for Brent to work out his studio setup and everything, and just figure out how to record ourselves. In terms of mics and where to put amps and stuff like that. Never intending them to go public. And so when Richie heard it, said, "Oh, we're going to put this out too," I was a little bit like, okay. So I don't know if you ever go back and see any press about big hits. It's like always mandatory that it's a new album of originals is coming out shortly.
I have seen that. Yeah.
That was always something because I was a little bit nervous about relying on a covers record. So.
Right. For listeners, I think covers records are kind of fun because, you get to hear these older songs that you know so well, and they kind of have a little new spinner vibe from the band that's doing it. And then if you're also doing new material, that's a big bonus too. And you guys have a lot of new material over the last few years, including the most recent album, When Red Lights Flash, which is, I don't know, is it a month old yet? Maybe, just about.
In a few days, it will be. It was officially released March 10th. So that's when it was released.
Yeah. And how was that making this new album in 2023 versus, 20 or 2002 or 1997 when you had that other album? Things must have changed quite a bit.
Well, this was a unique situation in that we started in 2019. We started recording for this album, and then pandemic hits, and that really changed a lot. We were even discussing like, okay, do we put Brian outside in the backyard and different people in different rooms? Like, drums will be one place, and like, how are we going to record this thing? We were trying to figure things out. But so we're really grateful that we were able to move forward with that. But even with Seen Not Heard, it was a mixture of songs that we had been sitting on for a while that just didn't get recorded. Some that were newer. But with Red Lights Flash, When Red Lights Flash, it's almost entirely newer music. And I think for that also made it different because it was a different approach. And then also knowing that we were making this more of a recording presentation. We didn't necessarily think, oh, we're going to try to, how will these convert to live performances or things like that? We just thought, let's give the listener our best recording of what we're hearing in our heads, of what we've written, of what we want to perform. So that's really what changed here with When Red Lights Flash, is if we dream it, it's getting recorded kind of thing.
Well, it shows the effort you put in because it is super tight. The production is great. The quality is great. I mean, everything, the playing, the vocals, all of that. It sounds so good. And I do stumble across bands that you're like, why in the world would you have recorded this? It sounds pretty horrible. And it's just one of those things, I just kind of leave those to the side and pass on by and look for something like this that I can really get behind and start listening to. And it is super polished. It's just so mod friendly, top to bottom. I think that my favorite song is He Thinks He's Right, but He's Wrong.
Yeah.
But he's wrong. But there's a number of really good songs on there, and I just can't tell you how much I've enjoyed listening to it the last couple of weeks. So
thanks so much. I mean, that's the payoff for doing records in 2023 is feedback from people, that they enjoy it. So
good. Yeah, and recording these days is you were talking about during the lockdown doing it in different places, but a lot of people now record, in different countries, and it's so different from how it used to be put together, and I'm not a musician, so I don't really know how that works, but it must be kind of fun to be able to do things this way now.
So I will say for us as a band, and Dean's with me on this one, is the performance has an energy that isn't quite captured if people are in different countries or in different rooms or in different places. So when we record, we're all in the same room together. The bass core tracks are us performing live. We polish, we practice, and we make sure that the recording is full energy and exactly what we want to deliver. And that's kind of why this is so polished and why it has that hit, is just because if we didn't get it right with those core tracks, we tried again. We moved on. And there were times that we would let it sit for a month or 2 or 3, knowing we had time, it being the pandemic, and would revisit and say, you know what? I hate to do this to you guys, but we're coming back in the studio. We got to do another take. The nice thing about it is studio time is free, but it shows that we wanted to give our best. Go ahead, Dean. Sorry.
I was a real pain in the butt with Enough and This Might Be the End. Recorded it and got pretty far along, and I was just like, the tempo's not right on these. We need to go back and start over. And I was just like, that's the care we put into everything that we've done, but we didn't have the funds when we were in the studio. So there were some things where I'm happy with all the records, but there's some, especially when we were younger, we used to play some things way too fast. I remember at live shows, I saw there's something online of like one of the first Decibels performances back in '93. We were on like a cable access show.
Wow.
And I laughed because it's like, it just sounds like a jet airplane. We're playing the speed of sound. And at the time when we would play gigs, I would go, why are people dancing? And they couldn't dance because we were playing it way too stinking fast. So on some of those early studio things on Create Action, whatever, if I hear it now, I'll kind of go, I mean, I like it, but it's like, it's a little on the fast side. So
Right. So when you're doing songs, like you were saying, it just didn't sound right to you, so you knew you had to come back and like perfect it. Do the songs take drastic changes along the evolution of them, like from what you perceive in the very beginning and then the final output, you're like, oh, okay, this one took on a life of its own?
There were a few songs on the early records that did change when they were first presented by whomever wrote it, that we would really put our own spin on it. And some of that was out of necessity. I can only play bass the way I play bass, and Brian plays drums the way he plays drums.
Right.
So they would get centralized to whatever the decibel sound is. And so sometimes that would happen, but never at the start of recording. By the time we got to recording, we had already test driven the song a bit. We'd already worked out the arrangement, but certainly when we would come with the song, a lot of times we'd present it with me just singing vocals, playing guitar, and here's the song, and Dean doing the same thing, occasionally saying, here's a little riff, or here's a part that we wrote that's integral to this. But, no, then you just let the musicians do what they need to do, come up with their own drum parts, their own solos, their own changes, and it's really a good collaborative effort.
So at that point, it's a real group effort.
Yeah.
I think we operate on the basis that the songwriter kind of has veto power. If there's something that a lead or a part, whoever wrote the song will go, that's pretty good, but that's not quite. Can we try something different on that? And that's always seemed to work out pretty well. But yeah, it's I mean, that's what the decibel sound is. It's pretty funny because I know Brent and I both, with songs, we have songs that you just know it's like, oh, this isn't a decibel song, so you don't bring it to the table. Although there was a couple songs with this one, I'm like, I don't think this is a decibel song. And Brent and Joe and even Brian were like, I don't know what you're talking about. Let's try it. And they're like, okay, you're right. It's a decibel song. So,
and then it just sort of fits its way into the lineup, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Do you have plans to get out and do any live performances, or do you just get ready for your next record now?
Yeah, the live thing, we played a lot behind Seen Not Heard, and while it was a lot of fun, I am the guy in the group that's sort of super stickler for like over rehearsing. I mean, to the point where it's sort of mind numbingly boring. And to me, that's because I need it. But I like going to a gig where you're not thinking about playing, so you can be in the moment with the audience and pick up on what's going on in the room and adjust to that or deliver what you need to deliver.
Yeah.
And while those shows in 2018 and 19 were fun, I don't think we were at our peak. And then I have voice problems. And so it was a little stressful not knowing how much voice I was going to have for each gig. I might be okay 2 days before and then go into it and tell the guys, hey, I can't sing this song or this song or this song tonight. And so that just got stressful. And then you combine it into the fact that people our age don't really go to shows very much anymore. It's a lot of work. And I always appreciated the people who take the time and spend the money and come see you. We weren't in a position to deliver in the way that we used to be able to in the late 90s and early 2000s, when I think we were a pretty good live band. And so, yeah, I think I told the guys, I'm just not up for playing live anymore.
But recording these days, I mean, like you said, we don't get out to as many shows as we used to. Part of that's being older, part of it's the environment that the world is in these days. It's a combination of all those things, but it's just the fact that, yeah, not out there as often, but being able to get really good, well-rehearsed, well-produced music and then get to enjoy it, in the comfort of home is pretty great. And so there must be it's not similar to the feeling you probably got on a live stage, but you must be good to know that people are out there enjoying the music, despite the fact that you're not out there performing it live.
Yes, it's not instant feedback like you get when you're performing live, but hearing that you like how this recent album was produced, that's the same satisfaction you get playing live, knowing that the work you put into something matters to somebody. So that's really where the feedback is. You just have to wait to see what people think. Where playing live, instantly if you stink or if you are connecting with someone. And then the reach, it's much wider audience now where you have dwindling live audiences. The reach now, being able to record and put it out online. We're getting thousands of plays on Spotify and Apple, on iTunes and things like that. So that's good.
Yeah.
And I think where Brent is, just really quickly, I think Brent's the same as me. I've been a music head since I was a little kid. And it was records that I fell in love with. And as much as like playing a good live show when you just have those out of body experiences occasionally and everything was clicking, it was amazing. But I fell in love with records, and it was making records. I always just wanted to be a part of that because I like, man, if I could make a record that is like somebody's favorite record, it doesn't get any better than that, because records kind of live forever,
Right. So you have vinyl for all of your releases?
Actually, I don't. Bart Thurber, no, that was CD only. And the vinyl for When Red Lights Flash is supposed to be out in the fall. Although I don't know, Brent, from what it seems like with Richie, it sounds like it might be sooner.
It probably sooner in the fall. My guess would be basic turnarounds about 6 weeks, and we got the ball rolling about 2 weeks ago. So while we were telling everybody the fall, it could be a lot sooner. And then it looks like Big Sounds Again is also going to that's the remastered version of Big Sounds of the Decibels. So Big Sounds Again is also going to get its vinyl released finally.
Wow. Yeah, that's supposed to be out in May. So for Snap Records in Spain.
Oh, that's great. Vinyl these days, and what I hear anecdotally is like a little hit or miss. There's all these supply and production issues behind the scenes of getting stuff made and actually pressed and out there, the supply chain problem, I guess. So it's good to hear that something's coming and that maybe it'll even be sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your guys having taken the time to do this. And I'm hoping that this helps with getting the word out about the album. I mean, you spend all this time producing this and, really you're not done now. You're just starting the next phase of the work for, however, 16, 18 months or longer to really get it out there. And the nice thing is it's new for people. I'm always excited when I stumble across something that I hadn't heard before. and especially when it's really good. So I'm going to try and get it out there so people, stumble over it all over the place.
Well, thanks, Ron. I appreciate you deeming us worthy to put us on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time. And I will put links up to your Bandcamp page. That's probably the best place to send people. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just heard that Bandcamp signed a deal with, I don't know, a video game company, the people who maybe Epic Games or something. Anyhow, apparently lots of independent bands at Bandcamp may start appearing in video games on soundtracks related to that. Wouldn't that be great, right?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So we'll look forward to that sometime when I'm playing some game and yelling at the TV and then one of your songs comes on. He thinks he's right, but he's wrong. All right. So thanks a lot. The Decibels, When Red Lights Flash. I'll put a link to the Bandcamp, to their Bandcamp page at mrsuave.com, and you can check out some stuff. If I can find that 1993 video of you, maybe I'll post that up there too. We'll talk about that.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Hey, thanks.
This might be the end, a signal to a new transition. No reason to pretend I still have my old ambition. It's hard to say goodbye, and part of me will die if I live life simply out of force of habit. The older I become, the more abstract that it all seems. The vista just shows me haze, not interested in building dreams. The past is truly gone. I've got to carry on and find a way to spend my days in the moment. Expectation always lets me down. Aspiration